first off, we like to start off with a small bio and a little bit of background of who you are. So, Angela, if you don't mind starting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. Great to be here today. Hello, my name is Angela Mclaughlin, and I work for Boston Scientific as a university relations specialist. So some of you may or may not know, but Boston Scientific is a medical device company, and we've been in business for over 40 years. It's also a global company, and it has 36,000 employees and we're in 40 locations all around the world or countries. The headquarters is just down the road in Marlborough, just past the high school. And Boston Scientific's mission is that it's dedicated to transforming lives through innovative medical device solutions that improve the health of patients around the world. Their products treat over 20 million patients each year. And Boston Scientific's products treat a range of complex diseases and conditions. So what is it that I do? Well, as I said, I work in university relations. So in this role, I help to identify and find interns and co-ops for different functions within Boston Scientific. So for example, some of the functions that I recruit for would be operations, quality, research and development, human resources, finance, IT. So it's quite a range. And the types of interns that I recruit from are students that are typically STEM majors and business majors. And we typically recruit at career fairs and diversity conferences. And we typically hire up to 300 interns / co-ops each year. So just a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Galway in Ireland, as you've guessed. And I moved to Massachusetts in 2017 with my husband and my daughter. I have an undergraduate Bachelor of Commerce degree and a master's degree in marketing from the National University of Ireland, Galway. I've been working for a long time, over 34 years, in a variety of positions and several countries. I've worked and lived in Ireland, England, New Zealand, and now here in the US. And I can tell you that I continue to grow and learn new things every day. So I love reading science fiction. I'm a Star Trek fan, Star Wars fan, and I'm gone crazy on everything in Marvel at the moment. I am delighted to be here with you today, and I look forward to answering some of your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. Jackie, a little background?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jackie Mihuovich. I'm currently a TA, stands for Talent Acquisition Coordinator at Cytiva, which is also based locally in Marlborough. Cytiva, we are a fairly new company. We were recently acquired by Danaher as our parent company last April. We were formerly GE Healthcare and Life Sciences, and now we are officially Cytiva. What Cytiva does is we provide different technologies and services that advance and accelerate drug therapies and therapeutics. We help biomanufacturers with the tools and expertise that they need to create these urgent and life-saving drug therapies. So we're all about accelerating human health and, making people all around the world healthy and to be their best. So what I do at Cytiva is I work in tandem with the recruiters to make sure that candidates are, getting their offer letters, going through their background checks, having the best candidate experience possible during interviews. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have about, the interview process, all of that good stuff. A little bit about me. I graduated with my undergrad from Wheaton College, close by in Norton, Mass, actually. With a degree in business administration, and I also studied Arabic and French while I was there. I've always wanted to work for an international company, and having foreign languages under your belt is always a plus. I have worked in merchandising. I've worked as an exec admin. I've worked in customer service as a bilingual customer service rep. And now I'm working in human resources and TA. So it's not always a straight line for your career path. You might not necessarily know where you want to end up, but the journey is half the fun. And currently, I'm also going for my master's in business administration through UMass Lowell. And yeah, it's been great working for Cytiva, and I'm sure that Angela and James would agree that working for companies that promote human health are definitely rewarding and exciting, and the science is always changing. And it's always a new challenge every day. But I'm really excited to be here with you guys today and to answer any questions you might have. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, please, after this. I definitely want to stay connected. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. That was great. James, if you don't mind.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Hey, everyone. My name is James McCarthy. I work for Synovion and SDPA, so Sumitomo Dynapan Pharma America. Synovion is a biopharmaceutical company. We're located right in Marlborough. And then SDPA is another organization. We provide those shared services, more so with the G&A function, to a couple other subsidiaries. In my current role, I'm a human resources professional. I work with university relations. We do a lot of academic programs such as internships. We have a number of fellows from Northeastern that currently work at our company. So I've worked in pharmaceuticals since completing my school. I went to Worcester State for my undergraduate, did a concentration in business and sociology. And then I did my master's out at Fitchburg State. So I did a master's in business administration with a focus in human resources management. And upon completion of that, I went and I worked for AbbVie at their biomanufacturing plant right in Worcester. After working there for a little while, I had the opportunity to join Synovion in Marlborough, where I took on some of the talent acquisition responsibilities, hiring people across the R&D, G&A, and commercial operations. My interests, I really like working with early careers and university or college students. I think being able to give you that good advice or pointing that right direction so you can really start that career out, that's important to me. So whenever AMSA reached out and they said that they wanted some people to come in and speak on on our behalf and have some representatives from the pharmaceutical company, and we were very excited. So we're pleased to be here. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, James. For the students in the audience, all three of our companies today are actually members of the Chamber of Commerce. So they have decided to help us out and volunteer for this today. They're not getting paid. They're just good volunteers. My background, I started in human resources many years ago. I got my MBA in human resources. I've been a top-level executive for both Inc. and Fortune 500 companies. And at one point, I decided that I was done with HR and went off to teach English for almost 18 years. And over the last few years, I've been the community outreach manager over here at the Advanced Math and Science Academy here in Marlborough. So again, thank you, everybody. I want to give a little bit of ground rules for everyone. We have a very, very full slate this morning of questions and scenarios that we're going to be sharing with you. But if at the end, if you have any questions, we hopefully will have a little bit of time to answer your questions. So you students can send their questions on the chat or raise your hand and we'll try to get them that way. Chat or question Q&A is probably the best way to submit your questions. But let's get going. And I asked to hold off questions until the end because we have so many questions that we have already collected from students during the RSVP process that I'm pretty sure that we're probably going to touch on just about everything. So we're going to start off with a little scenario just to get started. I'm an 11th grade student in high school, and I want to get my first job, and I don't have a clue where to start. Angela, can you help me figure that out?
Sure, just let me unmute myself. Yeah, that is the number one question, the $1 million question. I did the same thing myself many years ago. So I always suggest where you start is ask yourself, what do you want to be around all day? And what do you see yourself doing? And there are different strategies you can do then to lay this out. I like a mind map, or you can use Post-its. And you break it down further using what we call 4 Ws. So who do you want to be around all day? Who do you want your customers to be? Your work colleagues to be? Do you want to be around students? Do you want to be around goal-oriented people? Or do you want to manage finances? Kind of jot all these ideas down, because if you don't know what you want to do, it can be anything. So you could have loads of post-it notes, but just keep going. And then second W, what do you want to do? Do you want to design, invent, coach, teach, or even write? Do you like helping people? Do you like data? Are you a highly interactive person or a collaborative person? Or do you like working alone? You need to get all these kind of ideas out there so that you can narrow your choices down. Next, where? Where would you like to work? Do you want to be in a hospital, a rehabilitation center, teaching in a university or a school? Or do you want to live somewhere particular? Or like me, travel for work abroad? That's what I wanted to do. So that was one of my top things. And then I channeled my careers according to where I could go in the world. And then why? And this is the question that's the hardest, but this is what makes you get up every day. This is what gives you purpose. So if you think about it, you're there 8 hours, maybe longer every day. So the why is extremely important. So once you've put all these ideas down in your mind map or your post-it notes, thank you, Google. A great thing you can do now is type in those keywords and see what shows up. Simple as that. And then you'll have different careers, and then you can start looking into what they are. Use LinkedIn and Twitter. Reach out to people that may work in those jobs and ask them like simple questions. What do they like about their job? Or how they got their job? Sign up to company websites, to their newsletters. You'll get information about companies. These are all really simple things. And I suppose the top thing that I share with my students is reach out for those informational meetings or interviews. You're not necessarily looking for a job. And go big. Reach out to the CEO, the executive panel. They love talking to young people. And they'll help you with their choices, or reach out to your alumni in your colleges. I don't know if Marlborough College has it, but I know my daughter's in high school here in Hopkinton, and they use Naviance. And this is a software which helps students match potential career paths to their strengths and interests. And I had a look at it, and it's quite a really good tool. So I'll leave it to the rest of the panel in case they have anything else to add, but that's where I'd start, trying to narrow it down to what you want to do.
Thank you, Angela. A couple years later, we have a character who's graduated high school, and the last thing that they want to do is to go to college right now. They are not interested. Maybe someday they might go to college, but they're not interested in college right now. How do they start their career, Jackie?
Thank you. So I agree with Angela. That is a great place to start thinking about, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be around all day? What kind of environment? Do you want more of a team or group environment? Do you want more of an individual work environment? So I'd say, think about the field that you want to start in. Do you want to be in a scientific field or a STEM field? Do you like writing and marketing and creative type work? So think about those things while you're looking for jobs. You can always find jobs that the degree requirement is none, or just a high school degree. So there's plenty of jobs. I know Cytiva, we have plenty of roles that are just a high school degree requirement. And another option is while you're working, maybe a part-time job or something that you don't necessarily see yourself in forever, look out for internships, places where you can spend your time either, while you're not working or on the weekends, to get a feel for how, that company runs and how it operates, and how, could you see yourself working there, getting that experience for your resume. Build your LinkedIn network, talk to your parents or guardians, talk to their friends, talk to your aunts and uncles. Get a feel for what they do, and, does something that they do intrigue you? Or, how did they get their start in their career? Take advantage of all the resources around you, your current guidance counselors, We'll definitely be able to help you start with your resume, building up your resume, making sure that it really sells who you are and that employers will notice you. It really is, it can feel tough just submitting a piece of paper saying, this is who I am on one page, just one page. So you want to make sure that you're really making an impact with that first impression when you are applying for your jobs and looking to start your career. I would say also, on your resume, include any scholastic achievements that you have, but also, include things that talk about your extracurriculars. Do you volunteer? Did you play sports in high school? Did you learn about a team environment by playing sports? What are your responsibilities? Talk about how you've increased taking on responsibility. Do you watch your siblings after school? Things where you can really highlight that you're willing to learn and you're willing to grow and take on more responsibility. Those are the kind of things that, entry-level roles and careers where you want to start is employers really want to see that you're invested in not only the job that you'll do, but invested in yourself, and that you're willing to grow and you're willing to learn. You could also start out with, while you're still thinking about what you want to do, you can also start out with seasonal jobs, after the school year end, if you want to work at maybe, an ice cream shop over the summer or a golf course, just to get some general experience and work experience on your resume while you're exploring those other more long-term opportunities. Also, when you do get to the interview phase and you are starting out your career, definitely check out Glassdoor about companies, get an idea for who they are, what they stand for, what the interview process might be like. Of course, right now during a COVID environment, it's mostly virtual interviews. But take a look and see what these companies will offer if you do end up working there, and ask about growth opportunities. Look for a career that will allow you to keep moving and you won't be just stuck in the same role for year after year. And my last piece of advice to you guys when you're first starting out in your careers, and college isn't an option and you're not interested, and believe me, not everybody needs to go to college. It's not a requirement to have a long and fulfilling career. It is okay. It is completely okay to not know what you want to do for the rest of your life at 18. That's a huge ask and it's a huge commitment, and people change careers, in their late 20s, late 30s. Some people change their careers when they're, 55. It's never too late to change your career. It's never too late to follow what you're interested in and make pivots in your career and get different experiences. So don't worry if you don't know exactly what you want to do for the 40 years that you'll be in the workforce. Now's the time to take your time and think about it and be picky and, really explore what you're interested in.
Great advice, Jackie. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go a few more years down the road. I'm a junior in an undergrad degree. I'm majoring in mechanical engineering. And at the end of next year, I got to go out and find a job. What do I do, James?
Right. Thanks, Mark. And Jackie and Angela, excellent answers. I think that identifying the difference between a job and a career is very important. And, for a lot of the students that are listening to this right now, it can be very overwhelming. And I fully understand, the position that you're in. You're sitting there, you're listening to a bunch of people talk about, jumping into the workforce, selecting a major that you're going to have to, study or dedicate the next 4 to 8 years. And then you're going to go and, work in that field for the rest of your life. So it's a little overwhelming. It can be stressful, and that's completely normal. So the best thing you can do is, be prepared. I'm an Eagle Scout. That's the Boy Scout motto, is you have to be prepared for any situation. So whenever it comes to, beginning your career search or beginning, that assessment, I encourage people to take 3 steps. So the first step is a self-assessment. So Mark did an excellent job by identifying the major of the student that is in question. So you want to ask yourself, your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, you want to ask yourself and be very objective. You have to say, is this the type of subject matter? Is this the discipline that is going to offer me a career upon graduation? So there's a number of different tools and sources that you can use to see what the employment rate is for that field. You don't want to find yourself in a position where you spend an exorbitant amount of money, an exorbitant amount of time majoring in something where it's going to be very, very difficult to find employment. So that's the first approach, is that self-assessment. If it is a in-demand field, that's great. Now, whenever you enter into your senior year, you can then pick your concentration courses so that you can really become a subject matter expert and you're a specialist in that field. The second step would be research. So this is whenever you're going to evaluate and assess, not only from the top down, you're going to look at industries, organizations, and then specific roles. So for industries, you're going to really look at, do I want to work in the tech field? Do I want to work in pharmaceuticals, automotive, space exploration? Do I want to work in the defense industry? Or maybe you want to go work in government. So that's the industries. And then once you go to that next step, which would be the organizations. So for tech, you would look at maybe Google or Apple, maybe Facebook. If you wanted to go work in pharmaceuticals, then you could go and search Pfizer, Moderna, or AbbVie, Synovian, or SDPA. For automotive, Ford, space exploration, you could look at NASA or SpaceX. So we're taking this, wide approach, and we're slowly breaking it down so that we can find a specific role that fits your interests, and it's something that you can easily enter into. Then once you've identified the type of company that you want to go and work for, whether it's a large company, small company, one that's been established, that's been in operation for anywhere from 10 years to 100 years, then you can kind of really assess, what do I want to do day to day? And Angela, you did a great job by pointing out, you saying, what do you want to be around all day? I think that's right on the head. When you walk into any organization, and you will return to on-site presence, when you get to that moment, you want to make sure that you're working at a place where you enjoy your colleagues, your coworkers, and you really enjoy what you're doing. So by taking that, assessment, then going into that research, and it's a responsibility that you have to have, and you have to be disciplined in doing that. By doing that research, then you can kind of identify that correct field. And then once you've done all of that, you're at that final stage, which is you start working on your resume your junior year. If you can start even earlier, that's excellent. But the earlier, the better. If you can really put together a strong resume, or at least get a couple good drafts going your freshman, sophomore, and junior year, then you're very well prepared, because you don't want to find yourself in the position where you've graduated, it's 6 weeks after graduation, and you're sitting down, you're doing your first draft for your resume, because you want to be ahead of the game. And going back to that first point, you want to be prepared. So that's where, that's my answer for, encouraging you if you're a junior and you're approaching that. So thanks.
Thank you, James. As everyone can tell, we have three subject matter experts here with an awful lot of great suggestions and great advice and great experiences that they've already lived through. So let's get right into the questions. If I Google career search, I'm going to come up with 1 billion different resources that are out there on the internet. Which resources do you guys suggest for a high school student and a college student, and possibly even after college? Anyone want to take that?
Trying to mute myself there.
That's okay.
Yeah, so for college, Handshake, I would recommend is a great resource. We use Handshake, we use LinkedIn. They're our main two. And indeed, as I work in university relations, we specifically just stick to Handshake. Our relationships with our universities that we have, our HBSCUs, which are historically Black colleges, and they're typically the resources that we use in our job researches within the university relations space. I don't know if the others want to say what ones they use for full-time recruiting.
Yeah, great answer. Those are very effective platforms. I'll jump on that. Any of these tools that you can use to really find the correct job or find that career path are definitely going to aid you in your search. If you're seniors in high school right now, or if you're just recently graduated, or if you're approaching your senior year, one of the tools that I would recommend, it's on the Mass CIS website, and it's a quick 200 question survey that you take, and it asks you Do you like working in a laboratory? Would you enjoy, building kitchen cabinets? It asks you a number of questions, and then it gives you some results about, potential jobs or careers that might interest you. So at that very early stage where you're at right now, you're going to build that foundation so that you can see what type of career path you want to head down. So by getting those results, then you can go and, take note of the recommended jobs based on your interest or different careers. And then you can go over to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then you can look at the, employment handbook. You can go in there and see exactly what type of degree is needed. Do I need a college education to enter into this field? Like Jackie had mentioned earlier, it is not required to go to college. People have very successful careers without a college education. You can go and learn a trade. A number of different organizations have now removed that requirement. A number of government positions do not require that. I believe Google and Apple and even Tesla, they've removed that where they don't ask or they don't require a college education. So if there's any pressure, you have to take a moment and sit back and say, you know what? Is this really necessary for me to go into? Obviously, some career paths, it's going to require a college education. If you're entering into the STEM fields, obviously. But using those early resources, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Mass CIS, and then usajobs.gov, that can kind of give you a good overview of those fields. And then like Angela had mentioned, using LinkedIn, that is a unbelievable resource. Rather than you having to, go to each company's website and finding a job and reading through hundreds of different ones, you allow LinkedIn to provide you recommended jobs. So 100 years ago, if you wanted to find a job or enter into a career, you would have to go through the newspaper and you would have to circle jobs. You would have to call them. You'd have to see if that job's still available. And it was a very, very, archaic method. Now, you can use LinkedIn, and the algorithm on LinkedIn provides you with recommended jobs. So if you create a very good profile, you start working on that now, you input all of your relevant courseworks, some different jobs that you've held, LinkedIn will start recommending jobs that are best fit for your interests, your career path, and your personality. So those are the best resources that are available right now. Thanks,
James. Jackie, any resources to add?
I think they covered it, honestly. That was great.
James, you mentioned Eagle Scout, and Jackie, you mentioned playing college sports or playing sports, athletics. Let's get right down to probably the most urgent question for a lot of our students is, what do I include in my resume? And how does it evolve too? I mean, do I keep my Eagle Scout on my resume for my entire career, or is it only for my first career? What do you guys suggest? What goes on my resume?
I'll definitely jump on that. So if you're an Eagle Scout, definitely keep that on there for, your entire career. It's a very strong achievement. I know that there are a number of different clubs or societies, different organizations. The Boy Scouts, that's something that I've been involved with since I was a young age, since I was 8, I believe. So it's something where, I achieved. So I want to make sure that I keep that achievement and that award on my resume. So for your resume, that one sheet or that one, document, that document is a living document. You are going to constantly make adjustments. You're going to add to it. You're going to remove stuff. So you should have really multiple resumes. You should have your main format, which has an overview of all of your tasks, your performances, the responsibilities, if you've taken on any projects, your current education. And then if you're applying for different types of jobs early on in your career, you can then make small adjustments to the responsibilities that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. So if you currently work as a barista at Starbucks, or if you work for, if you're a cashier at Whole Foods, those types of jobs right there, you're interacting. It's customer service. You're managing a cash register, so that's you can be trusted with finances. If you have to arrive for, the first shift in the morning, that shows that you have time management skills. So identifying and assessing the role that you have or previous roles and identifying the exact skills, responsibilities that are going to be necessary for this job that you're applying for, and appropriately putting them into your resume so that you can reveal to not only the HR department, you're going to reveal to the hiring manager and to the hiring team that you are the most qualified person for that job. So, your resume, you're going to have thousands of edits, thousands of drafts. So it can be kind of, confusing. And if you are just now starting your resume, that's great. If you have no idea where to begin, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I have a very, very well put together, format where all you have to do is just put in your name, your address, all of your, qualifications, your skills. You just have to swap out that information. I will give you that for free. Take it away, use it. I want you to get a job. I want you to get a career that you enjoy. I've made countless, edits to that resume, and it's been very successful in finding people jobs. Everybody that I've done coaching or consulting with, I've given them that format, and it's been very successful. So if you build a LinkedIn, reach out to me. I'm going to post it on there. Feel free to download it and use it for your career search.
Thanks, James.
Yep.
Angela, what suggestions as far as resumes would you offer? Angela?
Sorry,
That's okay.
technical difficulties there with mute. Yeah, I'm very similar to what James has said. Fantastic tips. Yeah, it's very difficult putting everything on one page. And at the beginning of your career, you might go, oh, but I don't have any professional information. Well, start at the top of your resume. If you're in education, put your education first. But for your professional, as James said, there are lots of things that you can put in here, like as he said, that experience. Definitely internships. If you have any internships, put that in there. The one thing that I will say is, which you should always do on your resume, is be truthful and don't overemphasize something that you don't have experience in, because it's very important to be completely authentic and real with your resume. And it's the one thing that employers kind of can see, especially if you're very early on in career. So that would be my top tip, is to be very truthful on your resume. And as James said, a separate resume for every job that you apply for. So you're making it unique and personal for each job role. They would be my top two tips.
Thanks, Angela. Anything to offer, Jackie?
Yeah, thank you. Great points. Really great content from James and Angela. A few other things that I wanted to mention is, even if, like Angela was saying, even if you don't have any prior professional experience, make sure that you guys are including things and skills that you picked up while you are, in high school. Things like, are you good with Microsoft Word, Outlook? Excel is a really, really useful tool that you'll probably use at some point in your careers in one way or another. Things like that. Think about, are you good with social media? Is branding something that you've become familiar with? Everybody seems to have a Twitter or something these days. So make sure you're including those types of hard skills. Also those soft skills. Have you had any kind of customer experience? Whether it be, even just at a volunteer job, or did you sell tickets for the school play, things like that, even if it's not technically a job and you didn't get paid for it, don't forget to include those really valuable skills. Another point for resumes that I would like to make is, not only showing what your daily duties are. I worked at Domino's throughout high school and all of college as a side job. And, not only am I writing down, I made pizzas all day, it's great. I can make a pizza in less than 30 seconds. That's awesome. But you also want to show, what did your actions achieve? What kind of data can you include on your resume saying, I completed inventory management in a timely and consistent manner, which enabled, the data and inventory to be accurately recorded on a consistent basis. So you're taking the action, the things that you're doing day in and day out, and showing what positive effect did your actions have on the company, what kind of output did you create? I mean, some things will be very basic, restocking shelves and everything. Those things you can do as quick hits for your current experience while your resume is still getting built up with, broader experience. But don't forget to include the things that, you can really translate into, this made a difference in the lives of customers every day, provided great customer experience, retaining and maintaining those customer relationships. So, don't forget to think about not only the hard data points, but also, what did it do? And also, what did you learn from it? Think about ways that when you're in an interview, how can you explain this bullet point to your interviewer if they ask you for more information? Be ready for those questions. Be ready for, I would say, the tell me about yourself. Make sure that you have an elevator pitch to go along with your resume. What can you tell somebody, an interviewer, a future employer, somebody you reach out to on LinkedIn? What can you tell them in 30 seconds or less about you, who you are, what kind of job you are looking for, and what you can bring to the table as a valuable employee? So that's what I would add, I think. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Jackie. Jackie mentioned data points. How important is it, folks, to put down like some of the achievements I made? Like, for example, say I got recognized at Domino's for a full year of balancing my cash register for the entire year. Should I put that in my resume? Should I have a resume on my resume that I was selected as Employee of the Month at Domino's, or other types of achievements? And if so, how do I balance that off without sounding arrogant or too forthcoming? Anyone?
Great question, Mark. And that's a very common, challenge that people, come across whenever they're putting together a master resume. How do I, really be confident in my abilities? How do I showcase that I am the best person for this job without coming across as arrogant, like you said? Some of the things that people always, they're, indifferent about: do I include my GPA? Do I include all these awards, these achievements? I was Employee of the Month, 6 months in a row. Do I put that on there? So you have to remember, there is no such thing as the standard resume. There's no such thing as the perfect formula. These are good recommendations. These are, recommendations that, I'm providing, things that have worked for me, things that I have seen. I've probably looked at 10,000 resumes in my lifetime. So I've seen them all. And these are just some of the recommendations that I would encourage you to, take on as you build your resume. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out. I'm more than happy to give you a quick, overlook. But you have to remember, a resume is going to get into the hands of a hiring manager or the HR department or the hiring team, or somebody that's going to go and give you a referral. So the average time that somebody is going to spend looking at your resume is anywhere from 8 to 12 seconds. So in 8 to 12 seconds, you have to ensure that every single thing that is outlined in that job description, what they're looking for in the perfect or ideal candidate, you have conveyed in the most effective and efficient way possible, so that in 8 to 12 seconds, they've identified key points that they're looking for. They've identified, abilities, skills, attributes, whatever it is, they've identified that in your resume, which will then signal, this is a great candidate. Let's jump on the phone with them. Let's see if we can just do a quick phone interview. So you have 8 to 12 seconds to really make that impression. And you are not going to be in the room. You most likely will not be in the room if you're giving them their resume. They're going to have a digital copy, or somebody's going to give it on your behalf. So every single thing that you want conveyed in your resume, you have to make sure that it's outlined in that one-page document. So it's kind of on the fence about what to include, what not to include. But I always like to make sure that people are aware of how long people are going to actually be looking at that resume. It really puts it into focus of what they need to include.
Anything to add, Angela or Jackie?
One thing I would add is, and it's great today, you can utilize LinkedIn on your resume. Have the link to your LinkedIn profile on your resume, and that's where you can put absolutely everything, all your recommendations, all your soft skills, your hard skills, because most employers will click on that if the link is in your resume. So use LinkedIn as an addition to your one-pager resume. That's all I would add.
I think I would add on top of that, Angela's point about LinkedIn, which is, again, a great place to sell yourself, not only connecting with others, but also to sell yourself as a potential candidate. Make sure that your bio is engaging and very truthful about who you are. Let it be a chance to reflect you, let it stand as the introduction for you, making sure that, it's not just current student at UMass Amherst, somebody who, just basic quick points. You want to make sure that is it really telling who you are? Introduce yourself in your bio as how you would in person. I would say that is the best advice I could give, because it really is much more engaging to read about somebody who, might speak in the present tense, or the first person in their bio saying, "Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm an energetic team player," things like that, making sure that when somebody does go to your LinkedIn profile, which, Angela, that's a great point to include on your resume, make sure that it interests them. It makes them want to get on the phone with you and say, like, "Hey, this person sounds like, they might be a good fit for this role, or maybe even a role that you hadn't even seen online yet, and they might consider you for it based on your LinkedIn and based on the skills that you outline in your LinkedIn, the recommendations for things." So have your LinkedIn speak for you in a meaningful and a positive way that, will have people coming back to your profile and saying, "Hey, I saw somebody who I think might be a good fit." And keep it current. Always keep it fresh. Any new jobs, new experiences, new recognitions and awards, keep it updated. Make sure that it is, a living, breathing thing, just like your resume. The updates that you're making to your resume, make sure they're on LinkedIn too.
Thank you, Jackie. Most jobs, if not all jobs, now expect a cover letter to go along with the resume. I'm just starting off and I don't know what to include in my cover letter. And is it supposed to be one paragraph, 5 paragraphs? Can anyone elaborate on how to design a cover letter, an effective cover letter?
Great question, Mark. That's a very common question that a lot of students, people that are well within their career, people that are just graduating, they always ask, what's the best format for a cover letter? What do I need to include? So I'm on the fence where a cover letter isn't necessary. It is not required for every job that you're going to apply for. It's a nice addition that you can have, but it's not necessarily required unless in the job application it asks for it. Then you can always include it. But once you put together a standard cover letter of who you are, why you're applying for this role, what appeals to you in this role, and maybe listing one achievement that you've had or your current status. You always want to keep it short and to the point. You can always add that onto your application as one of the attachments or the documents. But I always encourage people, focus on the resume. The cover letter isn't going to be the deciding factor for whether or not you get hired or if you're rejected. If you have a very good resume and it's effective and it gets in the hands of a hiring manager, you want to make sure that all of your time and the majority of your energy is focused in putting together a very strong resume that reveals who you are, what you are able to accomplish. So that's really the priority. And in the format of the resume that I've created, what you can actually include to get around having a cover letter is what's called a professional summary. So this is anywhere from 3 to 4 sentences that identifies who you are, what your area of expertise is, some of your achievements, and kind of one last thing that comes in with a hard introduction. You don't want to include on there, "I'm a senior, I'm graduating, I'm looking for employment," or "I'm 2 years into my career search and I haven't found anything." You want your resume to speak on your behalf. So that resume and that professional summary, or a small or miniature cover letter, you want it to show the people that are making the hiring decision that they want to hire you. You want to have that impression so that the manager, the HR staff, and the hiring team, they come to the decision on their own and they say, "Wow, this is the person that we want." So you don't want to come across as, "Hey, I really need a job. Please give me something. I'm down on my knees here. Give me a job, please." You want to go into this approach confident and with that, sense of you're very qualified for it. So focus on the resume. You can always include a professional summary. Cover letter, don't always overthink it. You can jump on Google, you can do cover letter templates, and you can kind of just arrange how you would want to do it. If you have any other questions, always you can reach out and I can further explain. Thanks.
Great, James. Thank you. Jackie, cover letter tips?
Sure. I think, James made a lot of really great points. I think that for cover letters, one of the most important things is tailor it to each job that you're applying to. If you are going to use a cover letter, if a cover letter is not required, don't feel obligated to submit one. You don't have to if they're not saying, this is required. It's not always needed for every role that you're applying to, but for roles that you are applying to, I would say, take a look at the job description, not only the what you'll do part, but the who you are part, and make sure that you're making connections back to the job description in an honest way, as long as you can truly back up, what things that you'll be doing in the job that you're applying to, and how can you translate that into quick, short, to the point, connections in your cover letter, saying, if one of the things is organizational skills, make sure that you highlight that in your cover letter, saying like successfully organizing your schoolwork and your chores and things like that. If you don't have any professional experience, things like that. So I would say make those connections, keep it brief, keep it honest, and tailor it to each job that you're applying to. And I know that it sounds like a lot of work, and it sounds really grueling at times to redo, change your resume, change your cover letter for every single job you're applying to. But applying to jobs and looking for jobs and working on your career search is a full-time job in itself. And it requires a lot of time and energy and dedication. But, once you put that work in, you will be so much better off finding the job that not only you're a right fit for, but that's the right fit for you. So all this upfront effort and everything, don't worry. I know it sounds like a lot. It will pay off. I promise.
Any final tips, Angela?
Yeah, one little thing that I like to see, and it's one thing that I've practiced throughout my 34 years at working in my cover letters, I agree with all the points that Jackie and James said, is I like to put in, when I look at a company, I look at its culture. So I like to put a little bit of what I care, and to show that I've looked at their resume and I've looked to see what's important to that company. So for example, with everything that's been going on at the moment, it's good to say, if the recent events have affected you, or if you're doing something actively to help with what's going on in the US at the moment. I would always suggest personally, and I love seeing that in my students, to show that their purpose is very important. So I'd put a quick little line in at the end of the resume about that.
Very good. I used to tell folks that, the primary purpose of the resume and the cover letter is to get the job interview. That's just get your foot in the door. So let's say that I got an email from a talent acquisition specialist, and they want to talk with me next Tuesday. How do I prepare for that interview? Jackie or Angela?
I was going to say, I'll take that one. So I would say the number one things to do to prepare for an interview, start with Google. Google most common interview questions. Those are most common for a reason. Be prepared to answer questions like, tell me about a time where you had a conflict with a coworker, or tell me about a time that you were on a time crunch and had to finish a project within a certain amount of time. Look at those common questions, but then also, make sure that you're paying attention to the company itself. Like Angela said, go to the company's About Us page, see what is important to them, see, what their vision and mission are. Make sure that you really understand, even if it's just going to the company's Wikipedia, to get a really basic, solid understanding of what do they do, what are they trying to accomplish, who are their customers, where are their customers. Make sure that you're informed about who you're interviewing with, but also, write down any questions that you might have to ask at the end of the interview, such as, how big is the team that I might be working with? Where would this role be based? Is this role, how much of it, if it's like an engineering role, you can ask questions, how much of it is technical work versus, teamwork or things like that. So make sure that you're prepared not only to answer the interviewer's questions, but also to answer, to ask questions yourself if there's anything you want to know more about the company or the day-to-day activity, so that, as much as you're trying to sell yourself in the interview, the company is also trying to sell themselves to you, your prospective candidate. We want to make sure that you get off the phone with us and you're more excited about the job that you just talked to us about. So it's a two-way street. As much as you want to learn more about the company and they want to learn more about you, it's also a time for you to ask any questions that you might have, and making sure that you have solid answers. You can follow up with anything that you do include on your resume if they ask you for more information, because like Mark said, the resume is designed to get you a phone call, get you an interview. You can always elaborate more over the phone. That's the time to do the more extensive talking and explanation. So and the last thing I would say for interviews is be yourself and relax. It's really great practice. Even if you go through 20 interviews and you still don't have a job offer after all of that, it is great practice for any point in your career, whether you're just starting out or you are midway through your career, you're not even close to retirement, but you didn't just start. Practicing in interviews and talking about your achievements and who you are is something that will never go stale. So get comfortable talking about yourself, because you're going to need to.
James or Angela, how do I prepare for my interview?
Yeah, to continue on from what Jackie said, doing that research on the company is vital, but also one thing that's really helpful is use the STAR method when you're thinking about your answers to the possible questions that they may ask. So for example, when you're looking at your resume and what you have done, if you try and structure your answers using the STAR method, which is some of your students may be aware, it's situation, task, action, and result, and try and do a script of your experience and break it down into each of those three structures, and that will help you then answer questions that you may get asked. And going forward, it's such a helpful way of kind of preparing for an interview, is structuring everything using that STAR method. So that would be my top tip.
Thank you. James, anything to add?
Those are very effective, methods that you can use to prepare for that interview. And going back on that first point that I had made about being prepared, you want to be, as soon as you step either into that office for that interview, if you pick up the phone for a phone interview, or if you're doing a video interview, regardless, you want to be prepared for everything. And like Jackie had said, you're also, taking part in this process. You're interviewing them. So this is a chance, and this is one of the most exciting times of the hiring process, because you're able to be, placed in the customer position. You're now being, presented with the types of questions that they're going to ask you. If you're getting brought on site, where are they going to put you? Are they going to bring you over into, one of the offices that's way down in the back where there's no sunlight? Or they're going to be very friendly, or they're going to greet you. So you always want to remember that it's an interview, not an interrogation. So throughout that process, you want to be prepared. So some of the tough questions that you might be asked, some of the easy questions that you might be asked, they're going to ask you behavioral questions, situational questions, experiences from your previous roles, how they apply to that. I put together a list right whenever I graduated with my undergraduate degree. One of my mentors, she had told me, she says, you should be interviewing at about 100 different jobs before you accept the job that you truly want. And at that moment when she said that, I was like, 100 jobs, that's absolutely insane. So, or 100 interviews. So right whenever I graduated, I started going out, I did interviews. I remember going into Boston and doing about 6 to 8 interviews a day. And it got to the point where I had scheduled so many interviews just to get, well-versed, get comfortable in that process, that I had to recruit my mom to be able to drive me around Boston. And I'd run in, I'd do the interview in my suit. She'd keep the car running, so I'd avoid paying $60 to $100 on parking. And as soon as I finished, I'd run back downstairs and we'd, fly over to the next place. I'd run in, have a bunch of resumes, a whole stack. I'd run in and do that interview. And during that process, I got more comfortable. I was able to, be able to kind of customize my answers. I also took note on the questions that they would ask me. So throughout that entire process and that ordeal, not only was I building on my own skill sets that I was a comfortable and confident interviewee, but I also was able to be prepared, so I knew what they were going to be asking me. So then once I found myself in the position, I think it was job number 107, I found myself interviewing at the company that I knew I wanted to work at. And it was a very easy, seamless process because I was well prepared. I knew what they were going to ask. And I had experienced, great interviews. I had experienced, interviews that were flops. But taking the time to prepare is the most important thing that you can do.
Speaking of preparation, James, I've heard this expression, dressing for success. Can you guys tell me what that means? And maybe even talk about some things that you've experienced with people that almost immediately turned you away.
It's a great question. And I think it's very important. You want to present yourself in a professional way. So if you're calling into an interview, you want to make sure that you've gotten out of bed. You don't have your MacBook or your Chromebook. You're still sitting in bed in your pajamas. You want to make sure that you're in a room where it's clearly lit. You're not hiding in the basement somewhere. Show to the interviewer team or to the hiring team that you are the type of person that they can hire. So if you're on the other side and you're making the decision, this person just got out of bed, or maybe, they're in a busy cafe. They didn't really take the time to prepare for this interview. So does that mean that if we were to hire them, are they not going to prepare for certain projects, or are we not going to be able to depend on this person? So, dressing for success. If you're going to perform a video interview in your bedroom, make sure that you make your bed, take your dirty laundry and, sit it in the hallway. Go and tell everybody in the house, say, hey, I'm going to be doing an interview. If everyone could just, keep it a little bit quiet just for the next, 30 minutes. Typically, you're going to spend about 45 minutes to an hour during those interviews. So in that time frame, try to present yourself. Do a test run beforehand. If it's a virtual interview, check out your internet beforehand. Don't just jump on 5 minutes before and be like, oh, wow, I just realized I have the wrong cord or the internet's down. So that shows the hiring team how prepared you are for a type of position or for a certain project. And if you're going to be doing any on-site interviews, which you will, you're going to return on-site to work one day. I recommend one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received was drive to the location beforehand. So if you have an interview in, let's say, Boston or Cambridge or Springfield, Mass, wherever it is, run it on Google Maps first so you know how long is it going to take me to get there. So if it takes me 40 minutes to get there and it takes me 20 minutes to get ready and get dressed, then that means I have to allocate about an hour to be able to get there and be well prepared. I would arrive at my interview sometimes 30 minutes before I would have to walk in, and I'd stay in my car. I'm not going inside saying, hey, I'm here early. I'd wait and I would be, well dressed. I would review my resume and I'm in the environment. You have to submerge and immerse yourself in that environment. Go and, wait. As soon as, 15 minutes before your interview starts, that's when you walk in and you say, I'm here, I'm ready to interview. I'm here to meet so-and-so. So dressing for success, make sure that you're presentable. If the job, if you're doing a phone interview beforehand and they invite you on site, ask either the talent acquisition coordinator, ask one of the admins, ask somebody, say, hey, I just have a quick question. What is the, the dress appropriate? What should I wear? Some people will say, yeah, it's business professional or it's business casual. You don't want to overdress. You don't want to wear, the full, three-piece suit from, what is it, the Dumb and Dumber, where they have the blue and orange tuxedos or something like that. You don't want to wear that, but wear something that's professional. So that's my best recommendation.
Thank you. Angela, Jackie, anything to add to dressing for success, preparing for the job interview?
I think James said nearly everything. Few additions to that. When you arrive early, I always go into the restroom and just refresh myself, and I take the opportunity. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Amy Cuddy and her power pose, and it's really good. It just gets your breathing and gets you nice and calm before your interview. So I'd recommend checking out Amy Cuddy's pose on YouTube, and it's really great tip for calming yourself just before the interview.
I would say, I think James and Angela pretty much covered it. And the last piece for when you are going back into the office to do interviews on site, wear comfortable shoes. Especially if it's a long walk from the parking lot. You want to make sure that, you are dressed appropriately and professionally, but also comfortably. And, you're not going to be sitting there fidgeting with the buttons on your shirt or, rubbing your foot because it has a blister during the interview. Make sure that what you're putting on, is comfortable, because the more comfortable that you feel walking into the interview, that comfortability will translate in how you present yourself to the interviewers. And also for any virtual interviews, I would say do test runs with your friends, with your family. Ask, people like myself, the talent acquisition recruiter or the coordinator. We're happy to jump on test calls, whether it be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, really anything to help you get prepared so that when you are dialing in 5 minutes before the interview starts, you're not worried about if your mic is working, if your camera's set up. Do those test calls. They're free and they take like 2 minutes. So, even if you want to call me, even if the job interview is not with Cytiva, call me, send me an email, say, hey, I have a really important online interview. Can you help me out and test to make sure it's working? Use the resources and people that you have around you to check off all those little boxes so that when it comes time to interview, you look good and you feel good.
Excellent. So now I'm in the interview. And I follow, I'm looking good. I have my hard copies of my resume. I prepared some questions, and because they're going to ask me if I have any questions. So I think I really have some great questions. What things should I avoid doing during an interview? I'm sure we all have had folks who come in and they are playing with their hair or.
Yeah, no, there's obviously the do's and don'ts of the interview process. So you don't want to come across as somebody that's, not interested. You don't want to come across as somebody that's overconfident in their abilities. So let's say somebody that works there and they may have referred you. Right when you walk in the door, you don't say, hey, I know Jane Doe, she's down the hallway, and she actually told me to come in here. Just want to name drop, let you know I know her. So you don't want to come across as arrogant. A lot of the experiences that you will have in interviews, sometimes you will have, great interviewers where they're going to ask you very engaging questions. And then sometimes you will have, very, dull and ineffective interview questions where they might ask you, what's your favorite color for a job where you might be a statistical programmer. So some of these questions you're going to find are helpful, or they might be, off-putting. You might even come across a interviewer that could be a little bit too aggressive. So sometimes they might try to take that interrogative route where they could ask you, and I've been asked this before, they say, oh, who's our CEO? They might ask, are we a public or, private company? What did we post actually, or what was our, recent publication? Or they might ask you some really hard-hitting questions. You don't want to match that energy. So if somebody comes across, very aggressive, or if you can sense that they're a very poor interviewer, then, you really want to just take the more, professional approach and respond appropriately. Try not to get, frustrated. Do not take it offensively. You are still in that interview or that hiring process. So, take it with stride. And then at the end of the process, then that's not the type of company that I want to go and work for if that's the type of person that's conducting the interview. That's just, information that you're using for your own search so that you can then eliminate that company from your career outlook. So the do's and don'ts, there's a, endless number. I'm sure that everyone here has had, positive, negative experiences during the interviews. So, without a doubt, always just be prepared for anything.
Anything to add, Jackie or Angela?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing I would do when I go into the interview, after you've made your introductions, if they reach out to shake your hand, shake their hand, and then when you sit down, ground yourself. Sit upright in the chair and try and have your feet flat on the ground so you're grounded. It automatically makes you feel more relaxed and comfortable. If you're nervous, use the props that are there. If there's water there, pour yourself a glass of water, because when you're being asked questions, sometimes you might not immediately know the answer. So pause. And take that sip of water to try and, reach back into your mind and find the answer to the question. And if you really don't know the answer to the question, be honest and say, I'm sorry, I don't know that, but I will endeavor to find that out. But as Mark has said, be yourself, and Jackie has said that, and try and remain calm is probably the best advice that I can give throughout the interview. Yeah, that's what I'd like.
Jackie, any more advice?
Sure. I would say, try to make eye contact. I know sometimes prolonged eye contact, especially if it's a one-on-one interview, can be awkward and might feel uncomfortable and you might not be really used to it. But, try to make eye contact when, as often as you can, and making sure that it feels natural and it's genuine and you're building that connection with your body language in the interview. I know that doing things virtually, it might be more difficult. Some people say, like, make sure you can see your hand so that when you're talking, you don't just kind of look like a little bobblehead moving back and forth. That's something that you can do. But you can also, if it helps with virtual interviews, to help keep yourself focused and have a focal point, because, virtual interviews can sometimes feel a lot more difficult because you don't have that in-person touch. Put a pair of googly eyes on the sides of your camera, something to look at, something to draw you in and keep coming back to the camera, making sure that you're not getting distracted about things in the room. And, like I had happen with me, take out the home phone or any other things that might make sounds, or, things happen while you're at home and people totally understand that. But, try to eliminate any unnecessary background noise, even if it's, like James said, letting your family members know, or even put a sign on your door and say, like, quiet, please, interview in progress, making sure that you're eliminating anything that might be disruptive or might break your focus. And also, like everybody is saying, be yourself.
Very good advice. I think you've all alluded to the fact that if you probably, the three most important things to get ready for an interview is practice, practice, and practice. Practice in front of your parents, your friends, other experts who can give you valuable feedback, so that you're not making, if you tend to, not that I've ever had this problem, but if you tend to play with your hair all the time, that can be very distracting from the talent acquisition person. So yeah, just practice, practice, practice. I feel good about my interview. I did pretty good. I'm kind of excited. They said they'd get back to me by the end of the week. Is there anything else that I should do after the interview other than to celebrate?
I would say one of the best things that I see candidates do is to, if a recruiter says, hey, I'll get back to you by the end of the week, say they'll get back to you by Friday and you haven't heard from them on Friday, it's okay to follow up on that Monday and say, like, hey, hope you're doing well. I enjoyed my interview for this role. Just wanted to check in. So follow up, if they give you a time frame, make sure that you're actually allowing them that time frame. But if you haven't heard from the company, it's been like a week or anything, don't feel like you can't reach out to your recruiter or talent acquisition person. Just checking in for an update. It also, I think, is very appropriate if you'd like to ask for, the emails of your interviewers, the folks that emailed you, so you can send them a thank you note. You can also ask the recruiter to pass along your note for you if they can't share the interviewer's emails. One important piece I would say is, if you are sending a thank you note, it's not required by any means, but if you felt, like it would be an appropriate thing to do and you did really enjoy the interviews, make sure that you're specific in your thank you. Mention something that really intrigued you about the interview, or something you heard about the job that you wanted to learn more, saying, oh, we'll be using in this role, you would use data dashboards and putting together different customer dashboards, things like that. Mention something that you specifically jotted down about the role or the company, and mention that in your thank you email, so that they know you really are paying attention, you are invested in this opportunity, and you take the interview process seriously, and you're absorbing what they're telling you and what you learned about the role. So, follow up, and also don't get discouraged if you don't hear back. Some companies don't give you the courtesy of saying whether or not you'll be moving forward, and it stinks, and it's not a good candidate or customer experience whatsoever. But don't be too hard on yourself if you don't feel back. Don't forget to use your candidate portals. If the company offers that, you can check statuses of where where you are in the process, sometimes through the candidate portal. But I would say stay positive throughout the interview process. There will be no's, but you will have yeses.
That's a great point,
Anything to
Jackie.
add, James or Angela?
No, that was a good overview. That was a good breakdown. Just like a quick email that you can always send. I encourage everyone, I say, send it to the coordinator or send it to the recruiter. So the person that you spoke to from that HR lens, send them a quick email saying, hey, John, I wanted to thank you for being able to, take the time out of your day to meet with me. And if you met with a number of other people, you can include them by name. If you can also just put something, short. Say, I'm still interested in this position. It was great to be able to speak with John and Jane Doe about, this aspect of the interview or this, part of the role and responsibility. And then you can send that to the HR personnel and then just include a note saying, hey, if you could pass this along to the interview team. A lot of times the coordinator or the recruiter, they're going to be actively interviewing. They're going to be actively engaging in phone conversations, or they're going to be screening people. So to reach out to them and say, hey, can I get all of those emails from all those interviewers? Sometimes they're not aware of who all the people that you spoke to or who you were, if you had to do a presentation, who was attending that. And sometimes people that are current employees, they don't feel comfortable giving out their company email. So send it over to HR and then just put a note saying, can you please pass this thank you note along to the team? And then we're more than happy to do so. So that's the best approach that you can do.
Anything else?
Yeah, no, I've nothing more to add. That to me is the most important thing, is sending that thank you note, thanking them for setting up the interview. And then, as both Jackie and James have said, if they could pass on your thanks to the interviewing team, that's very important. Yeah.
I used to advise my students to send, and again, I'm ancient, so this may not be appropriate anymore, but I used to advise my students to go down to the dollar store and grab a little card and to send a thank you, a written thank you, versus an email thank you. And a couple of my students in the past, when they received the job and actually were working with the job, they were told that, they had 1,000 people that they interviewed, but you were the only one who sent a real thank you card. And if you went out of your way to do that during the recruitment process, you're going to go out of your way to support our customers. You agree with that? Is an old-fashioned thank you card?
I always say, if it works, it works. So sending a handwritten card, that's definitely something I've experienced. I've had people send me, a thank you note, and I said, wow, the person took some time out of their day to put together this note, and they mailed it. They're still mailing letters, which was, bizarre to me. I was like, that's great. I'm glad they did that. So you can always send them a handwritten note, which is, above and beyond. Connect with them on LinkedIn. You can always just send them a quick message. And just to always understand that there is a process. So sending them an email or giving them a call every day, hey, I want to check in on that process. You don't want to come across as, desperate. You want them to be interested in your candidacy, and you want to also give the impression that you're active in the market. If you're revealing that, this is the only option that you have for a job, then that's going to impact later on, which it's an entire other topic of discussion, which is the negotiation of either salary or pay. So there's certain things that you always want to be observant of in that early stage hiring process. But sending a handwritten note, it's definitely something that stands out. I still have a couple of those handwritten notes that are back in Marlboro, sitting on my desk. So I'm gonna have to have somebody go in and mail those to me. So that's a good point. I like that. Nice.
We have a lot to go. We only got about 10, 12 minutes. So let's talk about references. Most folks ask for references. Who do I ask? Who do you want me to have a reference from?
I think that for references, definitely if you're in school, look to your teachers, your guidance counselors. If you're on any student councils, look for the teachers who supervise those, things like that. And while you're still in school or in college, ask your professors, ask your mentors, people that can truly speak about who you are and what you offer and what distinguishes you from, the other 2,500 students that are currently at this school. But also look for people who you're not related to. You're not going to have your mom or your dad or your aunt write your letter of recommendation for you. Look for people who can speak about not only who you are as a person and what kind of work ethic you have, but how you will bring that work ethic into whatever environment that you're in, showcasing all of your special talents and skills and how you can bring that best to any job. A letter of recommendation can be universal. It's not something like a resume or a cover letter that has to be changed for every single job that you're applying to, because the person writing that letter is not going to want to do that for you. It's, make sure you're asking people who know you well enough to write this letter and who will shine a really great light on you.
Anything to add, Angela or James, on references?
Just what Jackie said. Personally, you should definitely ask if you volunteered with any events or anything. One of those people would be a great person to get a letter of recommendation from as well, not just who you work for, because that shows your character.
Very good.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is make sure they are reliable. So, as Jackie said, do not pick anyone that's from your family. If I call somebody and I say, hey, you're the previous manager of Jane, how did she do? And they go, oh, she's my daughter. She's doing an excellent job. She's out there right now. You want to, pick people that are going to be, able to relay your specific skills in those previous tasks. And I encourage people to do what I've done right when I started out, just do a test run. So put together a list of 10 people, your own list, and identify what are they going to be able to identify. And then you want to let them know. So let's say I listed Mark as a reference for a previous role that I had. Mark oversaw one of the projects that I, was responsible for. And I would let Mark know, say, hey, Mark, just so you know, I'm applying for a couple of jobs and they asked for a reference. Do you mind if I use you as a reference? If Mark agrees, that's great. And then I would say to Mark, I'll let you know if they plan on reaching out to you. That way, Mark isn't caught off guard. So the reason I would say do a test run, and this will help you get a better understanding of what they'll be able to relay. So one of the people on my list of 10 references, I said, I don't know if this person would be able to really do a good job in relaying. So I said, why don't I do a test run? So I had one of my friends call this reference and said, hey, I'm doing a quick reference check on James. I just wanted to get your take, see how he's performing. There was a lot of noise in the background. This person was, driving. They were getting off Mass Pike, going through the Starbucks drive-through. So I knew at that point, I said, all right, I'm probably going to have to remove this person from my reference list. So I had to work with the other 9. And that test run showed me that, maybe you have to evaluate who you think can be a strong reference for you. So don't be afraid to do a quick test run. And let's hope that, if you get to that stage in the interview process, if they're going to really be able to convey some strong strengths and abilities for you, then you're on the right path.
Thank you, James. Something I think is kind of important. I'm interested to see if you do as well. And I know Jackie just mentioned it. How important is a mentor in my career search? Somebody who I can bounce ideas off of.
Very important. I'd say if you can find a very strong mentor, and you're going to have many of them all throughout different stages of life, through careers, you want somebody that's going to be unbiased. Having family members, lead you down the right path. They encourage you, they support you, they love you. However, they also have a bias. So while they might, really want to help you get into that career, they might want to help you build on your interview skills. If you do a practice interview with your parents or maybe your siblings, they might not be entirely honest with you because they can't have that, objective view. So finding a strong mentor, I have a couple mentors that I use for different things. Some of my professors from my undergraduate, right whenever I finished high school, I actually went to Quincy Community College. I graduated there with my associate's degree, and then I went to Worcester State. So one of my professors that I came across in one of my classes at Quincy remains today as a very reliable mentor. I talk to her on a regular basis. She gives me good advice. She's helped me, set my career path. And she's in that specific field of need. So if somebody works in business, or if somebody works in biology, or if they're an engineer, you want to find a strong mentor that's going to give you objective advice that can lead you down the right pathway.
Yeah, definitely. And, studies show that mentoring leads to career success. And most good companies today will offer mentoring. Like 71%, I think that's the statistic, of Fortune companies offer mentoring programs to employees. And it's one of the things that we certainly do at Boston Scientific. From the minute you start, you can connect with a mentor to guide you through your career. So I think it's one of the most important things that you can do outside of your degree or your education is continuous mentoring, not just at the beginning of your career, but as I think James said, throughout your career, because you will change as you go along. So it's vital to have good mentors.
I think the only thing I would add on to both of those really great explanations and points is you don't necessarily need a mentor that's in your field or that's, doing the same exact job that you are doing now and they did it 10 years ago. Having somebody at work like at Boston Sci or like Scitiva does, setting you up with a mentor in-house, that's fantastic and something to absolutely take advantage of and invest time into. But don't be afraid to seek out mentors that might be in a completely different industry or in a completely different type of role than you. It's that having that different and, like James said, unbiased perspective can be really, really helpful and insightful to not only looking at things from a different lens, but looking at them from a completely different, somebody who has a completely different walk of life than you, getting those life experiences. It's not necessarily just about, work related things. It's about, moving your career and having somebody who's going to be in your corner and who's going to be able to give you helpful and unbiased and really honest advice, and somebody who's a sounding board. Ask them questions you might not necessarily want to ask your boss. Ask them questions that, oh, does this sound dumb? Your mentor is there for you, and they're not going to judge you for silly questions. They're going to be there to listen to you, to help you. They are making an investment of their own personal time to be your mentor. This person wouldn't mentor you if they didn't believe that you had something to offer as well. So as much as you're getting out of your mentorship, they are also getting something out of it too. So I would say, come prepared to your mentor with questions and enjoy the time that you have with them, and keep an eye out for any future mentors. I would say there's not going to be a time in your life. My mentor has a mentor. It's kind of a never ending chain, so keep your eye out throughout, not just right now, but all of your career and all of your life for a mentor. People are going to want to help you if you're willing to ask questions.
One of the students ahead of time asked something, and I'm curious myself. They said, will you guys ever check other social media, meaning, Facebook or Instagram or, TikTok?
It's a great question.
Do I need to clean that up a little bit?
So some companies do, they check, they evaluate, they want to look up the person. I personally do not care what you're posting. However, the interview team, the hiring manager, the people that you would be working with, they themselves are going to do their due diligence, and they're going to look up, we're interviewing John and Jane Doe this week. Let's look them up on LinkedIn. I want to see what their profile looks like. I would encourage you to make your LinkedIn profile as public as you can make it, so that it's very easy for somebody to locate you on LinkedIn. If you have a TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Visco, whatever it is, I would make those private. And even if you have the opportunity to disable those throughout that interview process or the hiring process, you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself as a professional, employee. So if you were to be evaluated by your potential coworkers, if they were to see you, actively, engaging in, crazy activities, if you're going skydiving every Monday and, whatever it is, you want to be presentable. So if you can, make all that stuff private. Keep it to yourself. That's your private life. And if you can, make your LinkedIn and your resume as easily accessible as it can be. You want that to be the first thing that they come across. The worst thing that I always see is when people make a LinkedIn, they always set it to private, but it's the opposite. Make that public so that if I search a candidate who, their resume, let's say it only reveals a small amount, I'm going to go to their LinkedIn because they put that link in their resume, like Angela had mentioned. Now, when I get to that person's profile, I can see a more in-depth breakdown of what they've done in previous roles, what they're currently doing, some of their outside interests. You want that to really be, the testament of who you are. So if your LinkedIn is private and the hiring team says, all right, let's go on Facebook, let's see what they're doing, or let's see what they're up to on Instagram or Snapchat. LinkedIn is public. Other social media is private. That's my advice.
Anything to add, Jackie or Angela?
I think for social media, at least for LinkedIn, make sure you have a picture. People want to see you. They want to, recognize you when you walk into the building for an interview, or when, you come on screen for that virtual interview. Have a photo that, clearly show like a modest, plain background. You don't want to show up on a plaid background and have it, the picture be a little crazy. Make sure that, you're smiling, you look engaging, and that it's a good picture for LinkedIn. People love a good picture, and to be able to, when they're talking to you over the phone for the first time, they can picture you talking. It's more of a meaningful conversation. I would say have a picture on LinkedIn and make sure it looks professional.
Well, we're almost done here. So what I would like to, if you guys don't mind, is like maybe some closing comments from each of you. Remember now, there's some students out there that are, lasting impressions are very strong here. So what advice or what last comments would you like to make? Putting you guys on the spot.
I'll start. So first of all, thank you for having me. And I suppose I would just like to say, don't be too hard on yourself. One quote comes to mind. It always seems impossible until it's done. I think it was Nelson Mandela that said that. Believe in yourself. If you put the work in, the research in, it will come. Nothing about life. I've been working for 34 years. It's never a straight line. And sometimes it's the zigzag line that makes it all the more interesting. So just believe in yourself, do your best, be your authentic self, and keep going.
Thank you. Jackie or James?
Sure. I would say, like Angela said, thank you so much for having me. This has been, I think, a really great conversation, and I hope that you guys get as much out of this as you can. My closing thoughts would be, try not to feel overwhelmed as many times as people are going to tell you that. Take a step back, take a breather. If you're looking at your resume all day, take a couple hours, get outside, go for a walk. It's almost summertime. I mean, New England weather is questionable, as everybody knows, but take a break from it, take a breather. Don't feel like, all of your time outside of school or outside of work needs to be perfecting your resume and your cover letter and your interview skills. Give time to yourself to learn, to grow, read things about interviews and things like that you don't necessarily hear from a panel or from, a teacher at school. Do your own research, be prepared. And cut yourself some slack. You guys are just starting out in your careers, and everybody has been in your shoes before. There's not one person who's a CEO of a company now who wasn't one day a high school or college graduate just starting out. So give yourself time. The journey is half the fun. Don't, everybody's like, oh, I want to be a VP or director or be in charge of my own company someday. You will get there in due time. It's not a race. Take your time, enjoy the ride. That's half the fun, honestly. And, like we've been saying this whole time, be yourself, be true to yourself and what you want and where you see your career going. You will get there.
James?
Great points made. Angela and Jackie, I think you did an excellent job breaking down everything. Mark, you did a great job, facilitating this discussion, and being able to, represent my company has been, a privilege. It's great to see, high schools that are, putting on these platforms, providing these opportunities for students to engage with, industry leaders or industry experts at an early stage right now. You're just building the foundation. So it can be very overwhelming, and it is. There is, just endless amount of information that you have just tried to absorb, and it can even go to further detail. So the closing, remarks that I have for you would be to take some time to really, break down, the assessment tools that I had told you about earlier, the Mass CIS, utilize different platforms like LinkedIn. I'm active on Clubhouse, which is an app where you can engage in, networking discussions with other people from different professions. That's a really popular app right now, and you can kind of get some good insight. You have to remember that you're still at that early stage. So any mistakes that you make now, it's perfectly fine. And don't be afraid to reach out. So as you're looking at that career search, you want to make sure that you enter into a profession that is going to be very profitable so that you can enjoy your day-to-day task. The employee well-being and, that entire, job enjoyment, you want to make sure you enter into a career that you like and you can see yourself doing, as Jackie had said, for either 40 years or, find a really good job. You do it for 20 years and then you retire. So if you have any questions, if there's anything else that you're still confused about, make a LinkedIn, reach out to me, and I can give you all this information. I've compiled tons of, data, tons of research. I'm more than happy to share that. So it's been a privilege to be able to speak with everyone, and I wish everyone luck in their job search.
This has been a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate it. I'd like to thank Angela from Boston Scientific, Jackie from Cytiva, and James from Synovian. On behalf of the Advanced Math and Science Academy and Aspen Valley Regional Technical High School and Marlboro Public High School, our students very, very much appreciate it, and especially from the Marlboro Regional Chamber of Commerce. This has been a wonderful resource for the general community. So thank you very much, panelists. Maybe we'll try to do this again sometime in the future. And I think I've already checked all three of you on LinkedIn, but I'll do it again just to get back. I want some of those resources, James. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. And thank you to the students and guests who have been watching us. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.